Now, the minivan space is filled with lots of steep competition. A revolution from one brand leads to an innovation from another, all vying to steal a piece of the same market share, part of which has already been stolen by crossover SUVs. So in this crowded space, how exactly do you differentiate yourself? Well, you make this thing. This is the 2022 Kia Carnival MPV, and it's technically not a minivan. At least that's what Kia wants you to believe by calling it an MPV, or a multi-purpose vehicle. But let's be honest, there's not really any fooling us. This has a large sliding door, there's 3 rows with up to 8 seats, and lots of cup holders, which we'll show off in today's video. But naming it an MPV may remove some of the stigma associated with minivans, like that of guys who wear socks with sandals, or moms who force their children into playing soccer even though they never played a day in their life. But anyways, there is one major difference between this and a minivan, and that is the looks. I mean, take a look at it.
The Carnival was completely redesigned for the 2022 model year. For those that are interested, the Carnival was previously referred to as the Sedona here in the States, but has been known as the Carnival to everyone else in the world. 2022 changes that. They are all just the Carnival now. The vehicle is based on the same new platform as the Kia K5 and the Sorento, and was designed in the same studio that made the very desirable Kia Telluride. Pricing for the new Carnival starts at $32,300 for the base LX model and goes up to $46,300 for the SX Prestige. That buys you dual power sunroofs, dual 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and center display, 7-passenger seating with second row VIP recliners, full leather seats, and LED headlights and taillights. This particular model is the SX, which sits right below the highest trim level. This vehicle has an MSRP of $42,770 after destination and $495 ceramic silver paint option. And boy, do I like this color. Reminiscent of Destroyer Gray from Dodge or Nardo Gray from Audi, it's simply stunning.
Now, if you are familiar with my car reviews, you'll know that I focus on 5 main categories. There's practicality, safety and security, interior and exterior features and quality. We go over performance and handling and wrap it up with some fun hidden features specific to this vehicle. Now, this particular trim is the SX trim level, but in today's video, I'm also going to be discussing the upper trim level, which is the SX Prestige, and the lower trim levels as well. So regardless of which MPV you are looking at, I'm going to be discussing it in today's video, and I suggest you stick around. Now, I want to give a huge thank you to Kia for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle for you all today, and for subsequent videos with this Kia Carnival, so stay tuned for those. If you are interested in the current inventory, or you would like to build your own Kia Carnival MPV, I suggest you go on their website at www.kia.com. Now let's kick it off with practicality. So one of the main reasons, if not the only reason, to buy a minivan is for the practicality. So as I'm sure you can guess, this vehicle really excels in that category.
Starting off with the doors, they are automatic regardless of what trim level you choose. No manual door option on the 2022 Carnival. Speaking of doors, you can open them with the key fob, the door handle by gently pulling, using the button inside the back seats, or the button in the driver's seat, or by simply standing next to the door long enough for the door to automatically open. Speaking of automatic openings, the tailgate will also open if you stand by it for a few seconds, and it has a feature that it will automatically close after you walk away with the key fob in your pocket, although you can shut this feature off if you'd like.
Now let's talk about cargo room, because one of the most important reasons to get a minivan is for cargo space. Well, that's where the Kia Carnival has you covered with a class-leading 40.2 cubic feet of space behind this third row. As a frame of reference, the 2022 Toyota RAV4, which is the best-selling crossover, only has 37.5 cubic feet. Now, if that's not enough for you, you can actually fold down this second row into this cubby over here with just one hand. And with the third row down, you have up to 86.9 cubic feet of space behind the second row. Now, if for some reason that's not enough for you, on every single trim level except the SX Prestige, you can actually remove the second row seats, and that gives you up to 145 cubic feet of space behind the front row seats. That's more than a Chevy Suburban. Lots and lots of space for stuffed animals and Cheerios. Now, one thing I have noticed with putting this third row back in place is it's not difficult, but takes maybe a little bit more effort than you would expect. These seats are very light and you just put it into place, but you see how they shimmy around? You kind of have to put quite a bit of effort to lock it in place, and then you can pull on this handle over here and the backrest comes into its spot, but takes a little bit more effort than I expected putting them back into their locked position.
Speaking of seats, you have a large assortment of different options, from the base cloth 7-seater configuration to the upgraded Syntex simulated leather, or the full genuine leather seating on the SX Prestige trim. The seats are overall very comfortable to sit in, and are offered in a variety of cool color options. This one specifically is called the Tuscan Umber, and it looks fantastic. The seats also have lots of flexible options, from all 8 seats up, down to just 7, then down to 5, then 4, then 3, and then just down to the front 2. Now, I will say the second row seats are quite heavy at 67 pounds, so I'm not quite sure how often you'll be removing the second row. The seats also have flexible options, allowing you to move each seat separate from one another, and even allowing the middle seat to be moved closer to the driver so that you can reach a child in a car seat much easier. Legroom in the second row is fantastic, especially when you move the second row seats back to its furthest position. However, in this position, legroom is a little compromised in the third row, but that can easily be fixed by moving the second row slightly forward without compromising second row legroom.
All right, speaking of the third row, let me show you how to get back there. 2 things to know. One is there's this button over here that releases the backrest. Now, one complaint I have is when you pull on this handle, the seat actually snaps forward at a very aggressive pace. So depending on how far back the driver or passenger seat is, it could hit these infotainment screens located on the backrest. But that's just something to get used to, and once you figure it out, it's not too bad. Now, the second thing I want to note is how to actually get back there. And there's this second lever located on the backrest where if you pull on that, it actually moves the seat about halfway forward and then allows it to slide into place so that you can actually fit back here. Now, once you're back here, it's really not a bad place to be. You've got cup holders back here. You've got a place to put your phone. You've got USB ports for charging devices. There's air vents back here for heating and AC. There's speakers, and there's even a rear sunshade. Overall, I would be fine sitting back here for long periods of time. One complaint I do have is the armrest located on the left or the right side is actually made of hard touch plastic. I really wish they would have made this a soft touch material because for longer road trips, you kind of need a little bit more comfort for your elbows. But other than that, back here is a great place to sit, although no infotainment screens for the third row.
The front seats also offer added practicality with this 12.3-inch upgraded touchscreen that supports wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. A wireless option is standard with the base 8-inch screen, but not on the upgraded version for some reason. The vehicle also offers voice activation, but in my experience, it works just like all other voice command systems. It's awful. There's lots of lag and I couldn't get it to stop navigating to a random address that I accidentally selected. But I don't fault Kia for this because none of the voice systems I've ever tested match those of smart devices. Honestly, I think it's just a gimmick. Now, before we talk powertrain practicality, let's talk about storage bins. Although the Kia Carnival doesn't have as many storage bins as some of its competitors, you'll still find plenty of spaces to put stuff near the trunk, the second row, and even the first row seats.
Stepping outside the Carnival, let's talk about the wheels. The SX trim level comes with 19-inch gloss black wheels. If you want something a little bit smaller, you got to opt for the lower trim levels. In my opinion, they actually look pretty good considering this is a minivan. I mean MPV. Now let's talk about powertrain. Now, all Kia Carnivals, regardless of trim level, come with this 3.5-liter V6 engine that's naturally aspirated and produces 290 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Just so you're aware, that is a class leader. Now, in terms of fuel economy, this thing gets 19 in the city and 26 on the highway for a combined 22 mpg. Now that's actually pretty similar to its competitors. The only one that does better is the Toyota Sienna, which can get up to 36 mpg due to its all-standard hybrid powertrain, although that vehicle has about 50 less horsepower than this one. Now, power is sent through an 8-speed automatic transmission that is designed in-house by Kia and Hyundai, and all of that power is sent to the front two wheels. All-wheel drive is not available, and honestly, that's my biggest gripe about this vehicle is for a vehicle that looks like a crossover, it really doesn't have the chops to compare to a crossover because all-wheel drive is not an option. Now, Kia may decide to put an all-wheel drive system in the future, depending on demand, but for now, I think that this vehicle is definitely lacking an all-wheel drive system, which is offered on the Toyota Sienna and the Chrysler Pacifica. In terms of towing capacity, it's actually pretty good. It's at 3,500 pounds and it's comparable to its competitors.
Now, in terms of reliability, Kia has been recognized for the last 6 consecutive years as having the highest rated vehicles in initial quality by J.D. Power. According to US News, the previous generation Kia Sedona rated highest in quality and reliability for 2021 compared to its rivals. And I expect this new 2022 Kia Carnival will rank similar.
Now, overall, I would rate practicality a 9 out of 10. Don't get me wrong, this vehicle is very practical, but the reason I notched it down a point is as a result of the exterior and interior styling being more crossover-like, you do sacrifice some of these storage bins and cubbies that you would get with a traditional minivan. Furthermore, this vehicle, regardless of trim, does not have the option of an interior vacuum like a lot of the other competitors do. Additionally, the lack of an all-wheel drive system really reduces some of that practicality when you're in cold climates like I'm in. Regardless, this vehicle is very practical and comes with a lot of different features for your family. Next, let's talk about safety and security. Now, when it comes to safety, this vehicle essentially comes with everything but the kitchen sink, although you could fit one in the rear cargo area. What I mean by this is even the base version of this Kia Carnival, which is the LX starting at $32,300, even that version has a large assortment of different safety features and arguably class leading. But you can also option for additional safety features on the higher trim levels, and we'll discuss a few of those right now.
Kia says that this vehicle offers the most comprehensive standard advanced driver assistance systems in the segment, with 12 different systems, including standard forward collision avoidance with pedestrian detection, blind spot collision warning, and collision avoidance, which will actually steer you out of rear cross traffic collision warning and collision warning avoidance, reverse parking distance and lane warning assist, lane departure warning, high beam assist, safe exit assist, which warns you of oncoming traffic when you are about to exit your vehicle, among others.
One particular safety feature I wanted to discuss is the rear occupant alert system. Now, we've all heard of vehicles warning you that there may be children in the back, and before you leave, make sure you double check, but this thing takes it to another level. It actually uses ultrasonic sensors in the back to detect any motion. Now, if one of those sensors is tripped, it will actually activate the alarm around the vehicle and also send an alert to your smartphone. Now, that is another level of added security.
If those safety features are not enough for you, upgrade to the EX or higher models to get access to 360-degree surround view cameras and highway driving assist that uses sensors, navigation, and traffic data to steer, accelerate, decelerate down to a stop, and keep with the flow of traffic. And if you get the SX Prestige, not only do you get a second 12.3-inch display for the instrument cluster, but you get blind view monitor that turns a camera on the left or right side of the display to show you what's in your blind spot, along with the signals located in your side view mirrors. In case you managed to get into an accident, the Kia Carnival received IIHS Top Safety Pick in 2021 with good ratings in all categories.
Now, overall, I would rate safety and security a 10 out of 10. That is truly where this vehicle excels, especially when you consider most of those safety features come standard on the base LX version that starts at around $32,000. If you're looking for one of, if not the safest minivan on the market, this is the vehicle to go for. Now let's talk about interior and exterior features and quality. Starting off with the exterior, in my opinion, I think Kia did a phenomenal job in designing this vehicle. In fact, this vehicle was designed in the same studio as the Kia Telluride, which I think most people agree is a very beautiful SUV. I've even had friends and family question me on whether this is actually a minivan because it looks so much like a crossover.
From its tall, angular front grille and hood to its boxier shape reminiscent of a Range Rover, and its long body line stretching from the front end all the way to the rear assists in masking its minivan roots underneath.
Now, it took me a minute to realize exactly why this doesn't look like a traditional minivan, and I think I've come to the conclusion. First and foremost, this is a bit of a boxier frame as compared to a traditional minivan. You have this straight line that goes all the way down the side to the rear taillights. Furthermore, there is a clear distinction between the roof, the windshield, and the hood, where with most minivans, it has this dustbuster look to it that swoops all the way down from the roof to the front bumper. Going further, these headlights are pretty parallel to the ground. Most minivans have this swooping type of headlight that angles 45 degrees downwards. Furthermore, you can actually see the hood from the inside of the cabin, which you can't necessarily do inside of a typical minivan. Now let's talk about some of the design cues on the side of the vehicle that help contribute to its crossover style. First and foremost is this piano black A-pillar. Now on all of the other minivans, it's actually the same color as the vehicle. In this case, it's piano black on all of the trim levels, regardless of color, and I think it does that because that way you have the windshield kind of merging into the side windows, giving it a more sleeker, more sportier look to it. Moving further back, you have this roof rail, which helps contribute to its crossover style nature. And further back here is this C-pillar, which is somewhat controversial, and some people don't like it, but I personally love it. I like the texture to it. I like the chrome/aluminum look. It gives it a more premium, more luxury crossover minivan look to it. And overall, I'm really glad they added that feature. One more thing I want to note back here is this third row window, which is actually smaller than the first two rows, helping contribute to making it more of a crossover style look to it because most crossovers have a really small third row window. As a frame of reference, the window is actually only about this size. The rest of this is just black paneling to help it merge into the rear windshield and the spoiler. The last thing I want to point out is this body line that goes all the way from the rear taillights all the way to the front, merging into that aluminum chrome look to it. That helps add to the proportions of this vehicle, making it look more like a crossover than a minivan.
Moving to the rear of the vehicle, it's harder to differentiate this from a typical minivan because you need to have a large tailgate and a flat rear end for added practicality. But the Carnival does a good job with its sweeping taillight from edge to edge and integrated windshield wiper into the spoiler. One design element I don't like is the rear backup light and turn signals integrated into the bumper. I wish they somehow integrated this into the taillight light bar, but I understand that federal regulation oftentimes limits what manufacturers can do. The rear is also aided by this aluminum-looking fake skid plate, which adds to the rugged crossover design.
Overall, I would rate the exterior a 10 out of 10. They somehow made a minivan look cool, and I honestly think that is one of the biggest selling points for the Kia Carnival. If you are looking for the least minivan-like minivan, then the 2022 Kia Carnival is for you.
The interior carries on that crossover vibe, with the front rows seeming to be plucked right out of their other SUV models. Starting with the door panel, you have a nice soft touch material which carries the same Tuscan umber color as the seats, mixed with some piano black plastic. Although the speaker grills are plastic, they have this cool, nice design to them. Moving into the cabin, you will find your buttons to open and close the automatic sliding doors and also shut them off, along with some of these safety features like lane keep assist. Moving towards the steering wheel, it's actually made of a very soft synthetic leather material and feels very good in the hands. There are loads of different buttons to help you control cruise control and various menus on the instrument cluster. I will note that the instrument cluster appears a little small. It would have been nice to have the digital display take up the entire center area, but given the amount of safety features standard on this car, they had to cut costs somehow. If you get the SX Prestige, you will get another 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster display. The center console is reminiscent of SUVs. You have a nice fake wood trim, or fake aluminum depending on what trim level you pick, mixed with piano black plastic and a center console that sits higher than typical minivans. You have a traditional gear selector that has a good sturdiness to it, and toggle switches for your heated and ventilated seats and parking sensors with the 360-degree camera. I like that you can pull up all your cameras with the click of a button. Moving up, you have two cup holders with a handy phone slot and a slot up above to hold your wallet or some loose change, along with your wireless phone charger. I do wish they had a slide out cover to close this area off and hide the phone and USB ports, but nonetheless, it's better to have this feature than not. Moving upwards, you have your touch sensitive climate control options and toggle switches for temperature settings. And further up, you have physical volume and two knobs and touch-sensitive quick access buttons. The giant class-leading 12.3-inch screen is one of the best features of the interior. It's bright with vivid graphics and cool interfaces like this map function on the home screen, which merges into the radio station, or this steampunk-style filament bulb for the radio station display. If you've used a Kia touchscreen in the past, you'll be familiar with this arrangement, and it just takes a little bit of swiping around to get comfortable with the functionality. The trim carries over to the passenger side with one long trim piece extending from the driver's side to the passenger vent. Moving towards the roof, you have these map lights with access to Kia telematics system, which lets you access the vehicle information using a mobile app and call emergency services. One thing to note is this area does not light up at night, so if you are searching for the light switch button when it's dark, you might click on the wrong buttons. Just a little backlight would go a long way. Moving towards the back, there is not too much more to discuss. The rear infotainment screens are fantastic with screen mirroring, Netflix, and other functionality, and the rear is also appointed with USB ports and household outlets to make it easy to plug and play devices. Above you, you have the camera and speaker system, which can be used to view and communicate with the rear passengers. And if you opt for the SX Prestige package, you will get two recliner chairs that can recline all the way back and even come with an ottoman to stretch out your legs on a long road trip.
Now, overall, I would rate the interior quality 10 out of 10. It's among one of the best of its competitors. It's got nice premium feeling materials located all throughout the cabin. Everything is well positioned and within reach. And this comes with the class-leading 12.3-inch touchscreen and an available 12.3-inch instrument cluster with the SX Prestige. I think if you're looking for one of the nicest interiors when it comes to a minivan, the Kia Carnival should be on your shopping list. All right, now for the part of the review where probably the least amount of minivan buyers are interested, and that is performance and handling. Now, the nice thing of this model is it does have easy entry and exit, where it will move the driver's seat back and forth to make it easier to exit the vehicle when you turn it off. All right, so setting off in the 2022 Kia Carnival. Now, just to recap, this vehicle comes with a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6 that produces about 290 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Now, Kia says this is the most powerful engine in its segment, and I believe it, but what I will say is the Chrysler Pacifica only has 3 less horsepower at 287. But regardless, let's do this quick on-ramp on the freeway and see how it accelerates. And put it into sport mode. All right, so it's really not too bad, but what I will say is I don't want anything weaker than this amount of horsepower. Now, I have not driven the brand new Toyota Sienna, but that thing comes with a hybrid powertrain that produces about 240 horsepower. Now, I don't know how that thing drives, but I can't imagine having anything weaker than this engine in a minivan of this size. Now, what I will say about this engine is, oh, it's nice. In sport mode, it holds the gears to give you that highest amount of torque. Let me take off sport mode because it actually stiffens the steering wheel a little bit too tight. One thing I will say is this engine is actually pretty peppy and pretty quick when you're talking maybe 0 to 30 miles per hour. In fact, this will actually break the front tires loose when you're accelerating from a dead standstill. Where it lacks is acceleration from 30 or 40 miles an hour up to 50 or 60. That 10, 20 mile per hour difference takes quite a bit of time, and it's also accompanied by lots of engine noise. Now, the engine doesn't sound particularly bad, but it sounds like every other 3.5 liter V6. Honestly, I think a turbocharged variant would be very helpful to give you some of that low-end power on those speeds of 30 to 40 miles per hour. Honestly, as a minivan driver, you probably don't really care too much about power, although I do think turbocharging would make it just that much better. Now, in terms of handling, this thing is actually very smooth to drive on the roads. It handles like a really nice crossover SUV, but at the same time, the steering is a little bit more precise and you've got a little bit less body roll because you're a little lower to the ground. And in terms of seating position, it almost seems like you're sitting in a sedan because the gear selector is about mid-torso, similar to what it is when you're in a sedan. In terms of steering, the steering wheel is very smooth. It's actually very soft to touch as well. I like this faux leather. I don't think it's real, I think it's fake, but regardless, it's very soft to touch. It's very smooth, very easy to hold on to. You've got this 10 and 2 notch making it easy to grip onto for very spirited driving. And overall, the steering wheel is very smooth. It's so nice that you can actually use one hand to control the vehicle. Now, in terms of sound quality, it is also very, very good. You've got this acoustic insulated windshield and driver and passenger window, so that adds to the interior quality and how quiet it is inside of the cabin. This is actually a very loud stretch of road on the freeway, and it's also very bumpy, but this vehicle soaks it up very well, especially when you consider this vehicle is riding on 19-inch wheels. One thing I really like that Kia managed to do is make the vehicle seem smaller on the outside than on the inside. Now, another nice amenity of this car is this 360-degree camera. So with the push of a button, you turn on this camera system that gives you access to so many different angles and features. It really is just one of the best systems I've seen on a vehicle of this price point. Now, it does shut off at higher speeds, but regardless, if you're parallel parking or trying to see if there's anything around you when you're pulling out of a spot, you've got that 360-degree camera on this trim level. Now, going further, I want to talk about some of the safety features that come on this vehicle, and boy, are there a lot. Not only standard safety features, but this particular trim has this highway driving assist where it will actually keep you inside of the lane with this button over here, and it will accelerate and decelerate down to 0 and re-accelerate as the vehicle in front of you moves. So let me demonstrate that right now. I'm actually going to turn on this cruise control feature, and I'm going to set it to 35 miles an hour. Now, the vehicle is going to accelerate on its own up to 35 miles an hour. All right, it's taking a bit of time here, but it's trying. And it keeps me inside of the lane. Now, that's where the lane ended. It got a little bit tricky. So the system is definitely not foolproof, but it's nice on the freeway where your lanes don't usually end and you're able just to keep in the same position and let the vehicle essentially drive itself. Now, after a while of not holding on the steering wheel, it will tell you that you should hold onto the steering wheel because this system is not foolproof. It's not full auto self-driving, but regardless, on long road trips, this is a very nice feature to have. There's really not anything available in the market right now that this Kia Carnival does not come with or offer you to purchase. One thing I will say about increased safety features is with that comes more beeps and sounds inside of the cabin. So overall, I would rate performance and handling a 3 out of 10 to probably nobody's surprise. Now, almost 300 horsepower is nothing to laugh at. It's actually pretty impressive, but for a vehicle of this size, it really does need it. The handling is just like any other entry-level sedan, and there's nothing really impressive about it, but when you take into the fact that this is a very long and wide vehicle, it actually handles very well. Now, regardless, this is the most powerful minivan you can buy. So if you're looking at a minivan with the most amount of performance, the Kia Carnival is the vehicle to go for. Now let's discuss some of the cool and hidden features that not everybody will know about this particular vehicle. Now, if you are interested in a large comprehensive list of all of the cool and interesting features of this vehicle, several days after uploading this video, I will upload another video outlining over 25 cool features of the Kia Carnival, and I will link it up on the screen somewhere in the corner in case you're interested. As for now, let's just talk about some of my favorites.
You have rear sunshades for the second and third row, ultrasonic sensors for rear occupants, override power doors when safe exit assist is on, plug-in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, passenger view camera and talk.
Hello, hello. Hey, keep it down back there.
Acoustic glass windshield and front doors on this SX model, which helps reduce sound noise through its laminated glass, 360-degree camera, key sensing automatic rear doors and tailgate, and kids mode on the rear infotainment screen.
So that is everything you need to know about the 2022 Kia Carnival. So what are my overall thoughts? Well, to be honest, I've never really been much of a minivan guy, but even I can admit that owning a minivan is very practical. It's essentially the Swiss Army knife of vehicles, and this 2022 Kia Carnival is no exception to that. In my opinion, Kia did a phenomenal job with the exterior and interior styling, and they threw in a bunch of amenities to make it easier for parents to load their kids in the back, keep track of them using the cameras, and keep them safe down the road. I really only have 2 complaints with this vehicle. First, as a result of the interior styling being more crossover-like, you do sacrifice some of the interior storage space and cubbies that you get with a traditional minivan. That being said, the cargo volume in this vehicle is greater than its competitors. The second complaint I have is the lack of all-wheel drive. I just feel like all-wheel drive makes it a little bit easier and more practical in snowy conditions such as this. But that being said, I'm sure the majority of vehicles being sold in the US go to customers that don't need all-wheel drive, and perhaps Kia will add it in the future. To sum it up, if you're looking for the least minivan looking minivan that's packed with tons of tech like a 12.3-inch touchscreen, more safety features than you can even keep track of, and a good track record of reliability and a great warranty, then the 2022 Kia Carnival is the vehicle you should go for.